cancer is still the leading cause of death for people under the age of 85. In the United States, 1 in every 4 people die from cancer.
As soon as he entered the medical profession, Dr. Simoncini realized that something was definitely wrong with the cancer medical system.
I prayed the Lord, please give me a light, because I see terrible sufferings. I was in a pediatric oncologic ward, and all the children died. I was suffering looking, when I was looking the poor children dying with chemo, with radiation.
Faced with this frustrating reality, Dr. Simoncini felt the need to reconsider the cancer paradigm from scratch, and began looking for a different origin of the disease. What puzzled him the most was the fact that all cancers behave in the same way, even though they occur in the widest variety of organs, appearing totally different from one another. He then started looking for a common denominator, and eventually found one. Most cancers appear white.
If you enter in the body and you reach an organ affected by the cancer, you can see that the lumps are always white.
The lumps are white?
Lumps are always white. Sometimes it is covered with blood or with the defense reaction. But in every post-mortem examination, scientists find the white lumps, the white masses, that is fungi. This is the pleura. We entered with a camera, and look, the pleura should be red, but you can see all the lumps, all the cancer that is white, really white. This is a heartbeat. This is a bronchial cancer. Look, we went into the bronchia with the bronchoscope. Look, they are white. And then in the colon cancer, this is red because there is a little bit blood. I washed it up.
Okay, and now it's white.
Now, look. It is always white.
White, like Candida. In Latin, Candida albicans means pure, glowing white.
Considering the fact that fungi are found in a vast majority of cancers, Dr. Simoncini tried reversing the relationship between the two, and posited that it was the fungus to cause cancer, not vice versa. This is his reasoning, which began forming more than 20 years ago. Candida is a very familiar fungus, known especially to women, who sometimes experience an infection in their sexual organs.
The vagina is a muscular canal that leads from the outside of the body to the uterus. The warmth and moisture of this canal create a perfect environment for microorganisms to breed. For example, bacteria called lactobacilli, which are naturally present in the vagina, coexist with a yeast fungus called Candida albicans. Normally, the lactobacilli create an acidic environment that keeps the natural yeast population in balance. However, when conditions within the vagina change that either decrease the numbers of lactobacilli or decrease the acidity, these yeast fungi begin to multiply.
Candida is present also in other parts of the human body, like the mouth or the intestine, but its growth is kept under constant control by the immune system, as part of its regular duty. Whenever the system's defenses become weaker, however, the fungi increase their chances of expanding their numbers, and eventually they manage to form a colony, which becomes more and more resilient as it increases in size. Once the colony manages to penetrate an organ, the immune system becomes incapable of fighting it properly. It is then the very organ that reacts by building a barrier against the intruder, made with his own cells.
It is that barrier, which we perceive as an abnormal growth, that we call tumor. Far from being a wild, uncontrolled cellular replication, such growth is rather a lucid and desperate attempt from our body to reject the intruder, which is now totally out of reach from the immune system. At some point, and quite possibly during the first biopsy, or during surgery, a small group of fungi escapes into the bloodstream, and ends up nesting somewhere else in the body. It is therefore this runaway group of fungi, and not a malignant cell, to cause the new metastasis in the body. Once the primary cancer sets in, the system's defenses wear out much faster, and chemotherapy only accelerates the process, making it even easier for this group of fungi to start a colony in the new location.
Unfortunately, chemotherapy also harms healthy cells, especially cells that divide quickly. Harm to healthy cells is what causes side effects. Some side effects may include hair loss, nausea and vomiting, fatigue, suppression of the immune system, and anemia.
Unless the immune system is quickly restored to its full potency, the entire organism will eventually succumb to the metastasis now spreading all over the body. To test this hypothesis, Dr. Simoncini considered treating cancer patients with sodium bicarbonate, which is known as one of the most powerful enemies of fungi.
Sodium bicarbonate is the strongest substance against fungi. They cannot adapt to a salt because it is not a complex substance. That's why the antifungal today's antifungal drugs are ineffective, because the fungi can adapt themselves in 3-4 days. For a fungus, you give an antifungal drug, you can kill the first layer, but the second layer they get used and they eat drugs, chemotherapy, everything.
One of the first persons to try Simoncini's treatment was Gennaro Sangermano, an Italian patient who had been diagnosed with terminal lung cancer back in 1983. With a life expectancy of only a few months left, Mr. Sangermano met Tullio Simoncini and chose to try the sodium bicarbonate therapy. 23 years later, in 2006, he gave this interview.
Buonasera. Buonasera, io mi chiamo Massimo. Mi sembra di parlare con una persona molto fortunata, mi sembra di capire, giusto?
Sì, molto fortunata, veramente.
Perché gli pensi...
Molto fortunata, ma grazie a Dio al dottore Simoncini. Ha detto vieni da me, sono andato con la cura che mi ha dato lui, con grazia di Dio.
E ci ha messo, mi diceva la moglie, ci ha messo 8-9 mesi a guarire?
Sì, oltre 9 mesi.
Però se n'è andato via tutto il tumore?
Sì, per grazia di Dio, sì, hanno ritrovato che è andato via. Non credere, però a me è andato bene.
Già è lì, infatti, dice...
Ecco, perché mi hanno detto che c'aveva 6-7 mesi di vita addirittura.
Lei non ha fatto nessun'altra cura insieme a Simoncini, cioè lei è sicuro che l'ha guarita questa cosa qua?
Sì.
Non ha fatto nient'altro?
La cura di Simoncini altri non sono andati. Adesso solo che più qualche raffreddore, la febbre, vanno a un altro medico.
Vabbè, chiaro, normale.
Allora, comunque la cura là non l'ha fatta solo lui.
Non ha fatto nient'altro insieme?
No.
Ho capito.
After a few successful treatments, Dr. Simoncini presented his documentation to the Italian Department of Health, hoping that his theory was put to test under proper scientific protocols. Not only were his findings completely ignored instead, but Dr. Simoncini ended up being disbarred from the Italian medical order for having prescribed cures that had not been approved by the authorities.
This is rather unfortunate for the millions of people affected by cancer today, as even the ancient Hindu books of medicine prescribe sodium bicarbonate against cancer.
Alkali of strong potency should be used in diseases arising from anella, sclerosis, meta, cancerous growth and such others which are very difficult to cure. This book is over 1,000 years old.
Like many other doctors who had proposed a natural remedy against cancer before him, Tullio Simoncini had obviously found himself in a direct collision course with one of the most powerful interest groups in the world, the pharmaceutical industry.
Anything that comes from nature cannot be patented. They're not interested in that. But what they are interested in, finding something perhaps within something in nature, if they can find some subcomponent that they can extract and then make it a man-made chemical that works the same way, then they can patent that, then they're interested, but not if it comes from nature, and it doesn't make any difference whether it works. So, we translate that into the real world. Of FDA approval, Surely these drug companies aren't going to spend $20 million or more testing any substance from nature because it can't be patented. That, and of course the FDA says it's illegal to use unless it's been tested for efficacy and safety. Now you see the catch-22 you're in there. Nothing from nature, regardless of how effective it might be, will ever be proven safe or effective according to the FDA. It'll never be. Because nobody's going to spend the money to go through the test. So therefore, everything from nature will always be condemned by the FDA as unproven. An unproven cancer cure.
As soon as the news on his treatment started to circulate, Dr. Simoncini became the target of a major smear campaign, orchestrated through the Italian media, in which he was treated as a charlatan and a swindler.
Amici di Striscia, oggi vi parleremo di un personaggio che dice di curare I tumori con il bicarbonato. Seguiteci. Buonasera, Jimmy Ghione, Striscia la notizia. Come va?
Niente, lascia.
Senta, ma com'è questa storia del bicarbonato? Ci può raccontare com'è che si curano I tumori con il bicarbonato? E ci può raccontare un po' com'è questa storia? Se basta il bicarbonato per curare I tumori.
Aspetti che bevi scendo.
No, aspetti che ma perché fa così?
As if the ridicule wasn't enough, Dr. Simoncini was also repeatedly sued for wrongful death and in one case sentenced to 3 years in prison for having allegedly caused the death of patients that had undergone his treatment. Even before any appeal was filed, the media seized greedily on the trials, delivering the final blow to Dr. Simoncini's public credibility.
Di Roma, uno dei più importanti oncologi italiani. No, perché quando parliamo di medicina e anche di cure innovative bisogna stare attenti. Dice quest'uomo, sto Simoncini, è un fungo, il tumore è un fungo e si cura col bicarbonato di sodio. L'impressione immediata di un grande medico.
Beh, una tesi bizzarra, voler essere ottimisti, e direi che è pazzesco, non c'è nessuna dimostrazione che ci siano rapporti tra infezioni fungine e neoplasie, né tantomeno che i funghi siano l'unica causa di cancro, come sostenuto dal dottor Simoncini.
Possiamo dire con assoluta certezza che il bicarbonato di sodio al tumore purtroppo non gli fa nulla, se no sarebbe stato molto semplice.
Assolutamente nulla, ma può essere, devo dire, anche pericoloso, perché se somministrato a dosi importanti può determinare squilibri metabolici importantissimi che possono compromettere la funzione renale, la funzione respiratoria, la funzione cardiaca, cerebrale, e quindi è un farmaco che, se somministrato a dosi importanti, può determinare anche la morte.
In spite of all these difficulties, Tullio Simoncini has never given up his fight against cancer, trying to spread his beliefs through conferences and through the internet. In the meantime, Dr. Simoncini has been perfecting all sorts of techniques to get as close as possible to each different tumor in order to always deliver the sodium bicarbonate with maximum potency.
Breast and bladder cancer with the sodium bicarbonate can heal in 99% without surgery, without chemotherapy, without radiotherapy, and let the organs there. Softly, softly you can remove the cancer just with local infiltration or ureter catheterization.
This is amazing. You're saying a urethral catheter can deliver sodium bicarb to the bladder.
Yeah.
Lorna is an Australian patient who recounts to have defeated bladder cancer by herself with the simple use of a self-operated urethral catheter.
In February 2007, I was diagnosed with cancer in the bladder. They were transitional cell carcinoma cells, and I was at stage 3 aggressive form of cancer. Over the year, I went for 3 monthly cystoscopy checks to keep it under control, but in June 2008, I was diagnosed with carcinoma in situ, and the urologist told me I had to have immunotherapy. I decided against having conventional treatment, and I decided to try out Simoncini's sodium bicarbonate solution. I had found Simoncini on the internet, and I did 2 3-week treatments of sodium bicarbonate under the instructions of Simoncini, who emailed me and guided me through the whole treatment. On the 28th of November, I went back to the urologist to have a check cystoscopy, and my bladder was clear of any cancer.
So I've just realized have you ever met Simoncini in person?
No, I've never met him.
How did you do all
In
this?
person, I've never met him.
How did you do all this?
What?
I mean, how did you
What do
get
you- what do you
all the
mean? How did I do
instructions? How
what?
did you know how to do things?
I emailed him via his website, and he gave me the information over email.
So you never met him in person?
Never.
Did you ever pay him anything?
No, not 1 cent.
He hasn't asked you for money at all?
No, not at all.
Are you saying with breast cancer, a little incision, squirt?
6 days, everybody heals. 6 days, the breast is spared.
Diagnosed with breast cancer in summer 2001, Marion received immediate surgery, followed by regular radio and chemotherapy cycles. After a relapse in 2006, she chose not to operate again and tried Dr. Simoncini's therapy instead.
We could fly to Rome to Dr. Simoncini, and he treated me with injections directly in my breast. Yes, we went back to Holland, and we found a doctor there who was willing to make again a mammography and an echography. And at first, the radiologic, our doctor asked me when she saw the mammography. Well, she didn't say so quite clear, but more or less she asked me what I was doing there, because she couldn't see a thing.
Relatively simple, is also the cure of uterus cancer, even in cases where the total removal of the organ is recommended. In October 2007, Sylvia was diagnosed with cervical dysplasia. After the conization revealed an invasive tumor, Sylvia was told the uterus needed to be removed promptly, before cancer cells could spread elsewhere in the body. After stressful research and against everyone's advice, she chose not to operate and to try Dr. Simoncini's therapy instead.
Hai fatto tutto da sola, cioè?
Tutto da sola, infatti ho fatto tutto da sola. Ho acquistato immediatamente del bicarbonato e la sera stessa ho cominciato a fare questi lavaggi della durata di un'ora, un quarto d'ora per posizione, che erano il corpo sul fianco, poi il prona, poi il fianco, poi il supino, in modo tale da prendere tutto il tessuto, visto che non avevamo una fianco localizzato, ma una cosa molto invasiva. E dopo neanche 2 mesi, diciamo 7 settimane, ho fatto un controllo il quale si è avverato completamente negativo, privo, un controllo con una microcolposcopia che non ha rilevato nessun anomalia cellulare.
Allora, io mi chiamo Carmelo Lombardo.
Di mestiere?
Sono nato, mestiere faccio il medico.
A few months after a colonectomy due to a malignant tumor, Dr. Carmelo Lombardo found out he had developed some liver metastasis. Just before the liver operation, he found out the tumor had already spread to each of his lungs. After the liver surgery, he found out about Dr. Simoncini's therapy, and chose to use the portacat that had been prepared for the chemotherapy, to introduce the sodium bicarbonate solution instead.
Quindi lei aveva il port per la chemio e invece l'ha usato per infilare il bicarbonato?
Il bicarbonato, sì.
Il port dove ce l'aveva esattamente? Il port dove ce l'aveva?
Il port ce l'ho all'altezza della seconda costola. Nella seconda costola precisamente hanno incanovato la carotide interna e raggiunge la cava superiore.
After 3 cycles with sodium bicarbonate, a TAC test revealed no trace of the tumors in either one of the lungs.
Un esame fatto con mezzo di contrasto e senza contrasto non si apprezzano lesioni né di tipo primitivo né di tipo secondario.
Iniziamo l'analisi.
In 2002, Annalisa Grillo was diagnosed with a brain tumor called astrocytoma. She underwent surgery, followed by chemo and radio cycles, only to see a relapse in 2006. The consequences of the second surgery were even worse.
Mi hanno portato a questo, quindi mio marito Massimo si è dedicato ad altri tipi di medicina.
E tra le varie possibili ho creduto di iniziare quella del dottor Simoncini, una cura a base di sodio bicarbonato endovena.
After 4 cycles of sodium bicarbonate, the RMI test showed a small reduction in the tumoral mass.
Dopo un po' di tempo, qualche mese più o meno, si sono verificati i primi risultati positivi.
A second set of 4 cycles reduced the mass of the tumor even further. The last 14 cycles, between March and August 2007, managed to clear the tumor completely.
La quale cura ha portato alla totale regressione della lesione, permanendo ad oggi soltanto un piccolo esito di tipo cicatriziale postumo dell'intervento.
Dr. Simoncini believes that also skin cancers are caused by the same fungus and treats them with iodine titer at a 7% solution.
My name is Dragan Misic and I come from Perth, Western Australia.
So what brought you all the way from Australia to here?
Because in Australia, especially in Perth, they couldn't cure my basal cell carcinoma and melanoma. I had 2 operations and many treatments with liquid nitrogen. But they completely damaged my skin.
And what did you do after that?
I applied the same therapy that Dr. Simoncini described in his book, Cancer is Fungus. I applied that for about, a few weeks, and
the cancer is gone?
Totally gone. For the first time, I feel, cured and free, and I feel like I got my life back again.
In 2002, Alessandro found he had a melanoma on his neck. Instead of undergoing surgery, he tried the iodine titer applications under the direction of Dr. Simoncini.
Però sopra un giorno attacca, è saltato via, è rimasta la pelle bella nuova sotto, niente, è saltato via tutto, non c'era più niente. No, era saltato via, basta. Sì.
Same story for Gemma, who had a basalioma on her chest and cured it with the same procedure.
Una dimostrazione come dovevo spennellare con la tintura di iodio, io ho capito perfettamente, ho continuato e tempo 2 mesi, come c'era scritto nel libro, è andata via.
Not every cancer, however, can be cured with the same effectiveness. Bones, for example, receive hardly any blood at all, and are very difficult to reach with the proper amounts of sodium bicarbonate. Different techniques, in some cases, can be applied. We conclude now with one interview that seems to best summarize everything that has been said in this presentation.
This is John Blankenship in Houston, Texas. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer in about August of 2007, and I proceeded to do all the classic evaluations that the medical industry puts you through. They did a biopsy and later on scheduled me for radical prostatectomy. And I looked on the internet and saw what they were going to do and the fact that I was going to be incontinent, and I rejected it out of hand. The whole time they were trying to sell this operation to me, and it just didn't feel right. They ran me through the mill, and I had to sign a paper that I would accept chemotherapy and also radiation treatment in the event that the radical prostatectomy did not cure my cancer problem. Sometime in early January, I was on the internet and that cancer was a fungus. I read over and over and over it, and it just made sense to me. And toward the end of January, I called him and made arrangements to go to Rome for treatment. And I arrived in Rome on the 1st of February, and on Monday, on the 4th of February, we put a catheter in. Did 8 bicarbonate of soda treatments over there. Took about an hour for treatment, and the only effects that I had the last 2 days of the treatment, I got a little bit weak, but he gave me 8 treatments. So I flew back to the United States with the catheter in place, and 10 days later, my wife had been taught how to do the infusion and started on a treatment schedule of 6 days of infusions and then 6 days off for rest. And we did 4 or 5 of these cycles. I just took on Tuesday, the 26th of August 2008, a ultrasound examination of my prostate, and apparently the doctor, I consulted with him and he said he couldn't find anything. He wrote a report to that effect, and I faxed the report to Dr. Simoncini today, and he was delighted with the results. He said it's all gone.
So, according to the ultrasound scan, your cancer is gone.
Yes, sir.
Can you believe that?
I absolutely believe it. I believe everything that Dr. Simoncini says. He's a genius. He's a Renaissance man.
So, even before you found out about Simoncini, it seems to me like the real turning point was when you rejected the Orthodox process. Is that correct?
I rejected it out of hand because I knew that as soon as they started cutting on it, those little cells were going to run all over my body, and 6 months later they were going to be popping up and growths all over my body, and I knew that. Because the fungus starts to run and hide, and it finds the best place to hide and receive nutrition. And his treatment sort of kills all of that because there's an overabundance of sodium bicarbonate in the treatment. And totally, while you're being treated, your blood is becoming saturated with it. So it kills the fungus en route to wherever it's going. So it not only kills the fungus at the tumor, all the fungus that gets away is killed in the alpha.
Are you a doctor, John?
No.
No.
I can read and I can understand, and no one else has made sense to me except Dr. Simoncini.
Thank you. John. Thank you. Dave.